Alright, so what we got in number 5 is the owner's lack of trying new things and his lack of trying to fix problems in this game. And now, I know you might be thinking that the owner is actually trying to update the game and he's trying his best to work on fixing things, but the real truth is that this game has a lot more problems than what it actually looks like. So, one of the problems, or let's say the biggest problems in this game, is actually duping. And duping has recently started to become a really big issue in this game over the past like week, I think. And honestly, it is not looking good for this economy despite knowing that this game is all about becoming rich. But because chromas or, everything else that's really valuable or considered as valuable is being duped and being transferred to other accounts and etc., is really causing this economy to not really make this more balanced or to make this economy feel more fair or easier to grind. So, or to even handle, right? So because of that, that's kind of why it's a really big issue right now. And if the owner's not really trying, right? Or maybe he is, but it's just that he's not trying hard enough because he's really been showing a lack of fixing or like a lack of like listening to the community because there's also been things where, you know, the owner hasn't really said anything or whatever, but yeah, that's kind of one of the issues with this game's downfall and its like loss of players. So yeah, building basically or pretty much grinding, right? And to be honest, these three things are the only things you could do in this game, and it really makes it very boring for the players. And that's kind of why most, people leave this game because they feel like it's too boring or it's too repetitive and it's not really like something new you can do, right? And honestly, some people are fine with this because they are always thinking about being better than anyone else, which, happens a lot, but I don't know. In my opinion, this is kind of why this game is dying. So, that's pretty much it about this fifth option. So, yeah. Okay. So, the fourth problem with this game is grinding specifically, right? And the main goal of this game is to basically have the best generators inside of this game, such as the chroma, right? Everyone is trying to get the chroma, everyone's trying to get the surge, everyone wants to be rich, right? And that's entirely the game's point. You are meant to be rich, you're meant to be known as, the top of the economy, right? The best of the best. But, you know, when it comes to grinding, the process of it is really, really excessive and it's really boring. And to tell you this, it actually can take up to a whole month to start from, let's say, a common all the way up to a quantum. Yes, I know this kind of sounds crazy or this sounds bizarre or whatever, but it really is true. It will take, it can literally take a whole month just to get to a quantum, and that is if you never get boosted or if no one even helps you or whatever, right? And that's kind of why this game is too boring, or like that's kind of why people are leaving because the grinding process of this game is not really balanced, or let's just say more engaging, right? It's not really that fun to grind because people have to spend hours beyond hours trying to AFK in this game or to try and grind in public for countless hours just to get something that's better. And honestly, that's exactly why this game's losing players. So the third thing we got in this list right now is this game is very complex. And to be honest, I don't actually think it's that complex, but this is only because I'm mature. Now think about that for a second. Mature. This game only blew up because there was a lot of young audiences, such as ages ranging from 5 years old all the way up to 13 years old, right? Or maybe even more, right? And the thing is that a majority of this game community is actually just little kids, right? Kids that don't really know how to defend, or kids that don't really know how to base, right? And that's kind of exactly why this game is a little bit too complex, because it's hard to try and learn how to become richer. It's kind of hard to try and know how to raid. I mean, it kind of is easy, but then like when you look at the, servers, or if you have ever seen these kids playing in this game, it really does not seem like they know what they're doing at all. So there really needs to be a better or improved tutorial for this game. But to be honest, I just think the game is a little bit too complex for the younger audience only, right? Because if you're a little bit mature, you would see this game as very easy to understand. All you gotta do is just base, play some gens, start farming, and then get richer, right? And then when it comes to raiding, you just gotta find those people, grab their generators, and boom, you get something crazy, right? Which is pretty easy. Okay, so the second one we got on the list is actually balancing. And balancing in this game is not looking really good so far. Ever since a week ago, or more than a week ago actually, there was an update called the tokens, which was essentially a way to improve grinding slightly, and it was also a way to improve and buff PvP, and also rating as well, right? Which I hope everyone knows that this is actually not a good update, because the way how you can earn tokens is really, really grindy. It is really, really unfair for the players that don't actually have access to AFK grinding, and is also unfair to those who want to basically get better in this game, or to have those upgrades, right? Because the only best way to get tokens as fast as possible is to gain through codes, and codes are not always made every day. So that is kind of the reason why this update is bad, because not a lot of people are able to buy token upgrades, and the token upgrades are kind of crazy. So that is actually one of the major issues of this game. But to be honest, this isn't actually the only problem. Another problem is actually level upgrades, or level points basically. And these are what makes raiding more easier, and this also perhaps, makes basing or protecting your generators easier, but that doesn't really factor it out that much, because not a lot of people have a lot of levels. And because it's kind of like different for other players, like let's say someone like me, right? Because I play this game a lot. I'm Rebirth 31. I have 59 levels. I have a lot of upgrades, right? And and if you look at other players that are new, they actually have upgrades that are like barely that much of a support. Like let's just say I'm new to this game and my early stats are like 100 HP, 0% damage, 0% health, 0% chance. So you can't so you can kind of see where I'm going with this, right? It's kind of like you gotta grind, or you gotta do all this and that to even be able to be better than other players, which I can understand that it makes the game more fun, because it's harder for others to get you, or to, you know, ruin your game, or I don't know, collect your gens, I guess. But then it doesn't really make a good balance between these new players and pro players like me, and that's kind of why people are quitting. It's because this game is not really fair, or it's, let's say, not always fair. And honestly, I could agree with those players. And then the next thing we got here is actually rebirth points. Now, to be honest, rebirth points are kind of the same as level upgrades, but a little bit more effective. Like you could see over here, destroyer. This is essentially a way to, raid more easier, and same thing with health. It makes it so that you're more stronger, but to be honest, these two main upgrades are what makes the game a little bit more unbalanced, because you get the point, right? You just can easily overpower someone else and they can't really do anything about it, right? Alright, so the last thing we got here on the list is actually rating. Yes, you heard me right. Rating is the number one reason as to why this game is on its downfall. And not only rating, it is also because of losing generators. Like in general, losing generators. So this can kind of range from raids or data loss or pretty much anything, right? And because of this, like issue of where you could lose your generators or whatever, this kind of makes a really big issue for little kids or younger audiences that don't know how to, you know, handle losing things because I mean, what you might be thinking is that you could just raid someone else and get those generators back, or you could raid someone that's really rich or whatever to get really better generators or something. But the problem is that those type of players are something you can never really see that often. And that makes sense because no one wants to lose their generators. Like for me, I'm currently in a private server, right? I have all these great generators, but I'm not in public. So you can kind of see why this game is unfair, right? It's just that you can't even like raid people who are rich if you lose your own stuff, right? And so if you lose all your stuff from raiding or whatever, it makes it so that you have to start from all the way from the very beginning of where you started with a common, and you can't really, you know, grind back to where you were. Like let's say you had a quantum, right? But someone took all your quantums and now you have to start from the very beginning. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And now, to be honest, if you think about it, no one wants to ever restart the game. No one likes to lose everything they have and to restart from the very beginning of when they started this game, which is exactly why this game is dying. This game is mainly dying because people are losing their generators. This is like the main foundation of where grinding and becoming the richest is a thing. And people like being rich, so and that is also the main point of the game. You're supposed to be rich and better than everyone else, but you can't really achieve that because you're losing your generators. So that is exactly why this game is kind of dying. And now to talk about data loss, this game has a really bad issue, and that is data loss, right? Like I said earlier before. And the thing about data loss is that Speezy, aka the owner of Steal a Generator, is actually he is actually unable to fix this issue. And because he's unable to fix this issue, this requires you to start creating your own video recordings or whatever to prevent you from losing generators or things that were earned through a very lengthy process. However, because people do not have really advanced devices or, computers that can last for long hours of recording without crashing the player or whatever, this kind of adds a really big issue with this, and this kind of adds a counter to being able to record your own evidence of losing your generous. So that's kind of why people just quit this game. Like, if you've ever heard of this one person named Tancor, or maybe someone like Rain, if you've ever heard of those people, um, those two people actually lost their stuff. They actually lost generators like their radiance and their chromas or surges, basically. And this kind of happened because they were facing an issue of data loss, right? Because the servers, like Roblox, right? You all know Roblox, right? Roblox is not really good with their data stores. And if the data stores are off, or like they're currently facing an issue, and if these players, like let's say Rain or Tanker, like they actually crashed during data store issues, this kind of, you know, causes a big issue with players where they lose everything they have and they resort to quitting because they don't have any other way to gain that back. And it's also unfair because you never lost it from anyone else. So that is why this game is on its downfall. Also, I do feel bad for Tanker and Rain, for those two people that actually lost all of their good generators. They've really spent a lot of their time playing this game and they really do regret it. And to be honest, I think this is actually partially of the owner's fault for not being able to restore these generators. And honestly, it is what it is. Speezy wants to be like this. I guess that's just how it is, right? Also, Speezy, if you're ever watching this video, please do not, you know, punish me or whatever. I honestly think you're a great developer, right? You're trying your best, but I just think that you could be trying a little bit more to make this game more alive or more engaging or to fix all of its issues. But because you're not really fixing these issues, that's kind of why this game is just not looking good so far, and it's just kind of dying quickly within a week or so. So, yeah. Alright, so now that I've explained to you guys about the 5 main reasons as to why this game is losing its players, I hope you guys can learn and, you know, understand that this game is currently not in its greatest paths, and it has always been like this actually. This game used to be called Cash Flow 2. And if you've all ever heard of Cash Flow 2, it was basically the original name of this game. Still a Generator was used to be called Cash Flow 2. And Cash Flow 2 had a lot of issues and it's still happening now. So, that is actually something that in case you guys didn't know about, but yeah. And also, I'm gonna be honest, the community is really toxic. If you all ever went into their own Discord server, or if you've ever all went to public and you've ever seen someone gotten raided, this game is heavily toxic. You will be faced with people saying easy. You will be faced with people that are dissing on you for being bad, and it really doesn't make a great community or a really good game because people or kids that are trying to just have fun get faced with toxicity just kind of want to leave the game because they don't want to be in a bad community or they don't want to face toxic players. So that is exactly why this game is just not looking good. And I do hope that Speezy can at least do something about this because he's not really showing a lot of care or he's not really showing that effort of trying to remove these toxic players from this game. So yeah, that's kind of how cash flow, or I mean, that's just kind of how Steal a Generator is. But to be honest, there's nothing that us players can do. And if Speezy ever watches this video, I really do hope he considers fixing these issues and makes the game a lot more better. Which I think he might actually, because he is trying to make this game more engaging by adding certain things like zombies or hyperstars that make grinding less harder or excessive. So I really do hope he is trying to increase this game's engagement and to hope and to probably help make this game a lot more better basically. Yeah. So yeah.